Well, I was really humbled by the debate. I mean, I've been at this since August, representing the people in Minnesota who feel like their concerns aren't being heard by the political class, who feel frustrated with the mismanagement that Tim Walz has done to this state. And I'm running for them. And it was finally a chance for we, the people, to strike a blow for freedom and victory and say that, you don't have to be part of the anointed political elite to do well. Given an opportunity to represent the values that I hold dear to my heart of constitutional conservatism, it was a great opportunity to explain and expound upon those values in front of a large crowd. And I thank you and Alpha News and all the folks who put it on for giving me the opportunity to be there. Yeah, no, I didn't expect it. No one on my team did. And then the media spin machine gets going right afterwards, like, oh, this is fake news and Dominion voting machines. And you're like, well, okay, look, I mean, the reality is everyone knew this was the biggest debate and probably will be the biggest debate before the caucuses on February 1st. Everyone had an opportunity to try to get their folks there. There were some Save Soda shirts around that room, but maybe a dozen out of 500 people. So I mean, everyone had the opportunity to quote unquote pack the deal. We certainly didn't. We don't have the resources to do that. I mean, I don't have Scott Jensen money, so I can't pay people to go to this thing and sit there. I think what the establishment was so afraid of was that perhaps a lot of people went into that room with an open mind, and maybe the best person won that debate. And that's terrifying. The anointed elite in this state think that they're somehow special and we're beholden to them and they're in charge of who gets the nomination. You know what? We, the people, are in charge of that. And that's what's so beautiful about the delegate and caucus process here. It neutralizes all those advantages. If you're upset with the way your state's going, you can show up. You can go to caucuses. We, the people, can become delegates and decide who gets the endorsement. So that's what I think the bottom line was, is a lot of people with open minds went in there and said, I see someone on that stage that will stand and fight for conservative values. I see someone who wants to get Tim Walz out of office, and I see the potential in that person to do that. And we were very thankful to get that vote. In fact, my campaign manager, Fletcher, was up at that stage saying, you guys have the vote, you guys have the vote. And they just kept hemming and hawing because I don't think they believed it. And they didn't want to release it right away. But, it is what it is. And we're very proud, and I'm very humbled. I've been just texting all of our early supporters, people who had faith in me, faith in the campaign, faith in the mission to take back this state, and contributed to us early on. We've got an amazing group of volunteers. I have an amazing team. This was a team effort. And big shout out to my campaign manager, Fletcher. He came up to me at halftime and said, you got to do better, son. Get back out there and tell them why you're running. And so that second half was a lot of fun. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I for too long have faith that the establishment, that Republican and conservative were synonymous. And then I realized that they weren't. And I'm a constitutional conservative. I stand for those values. And I want to represent all Minnesotans who feel disenfranchised by what we've seen happen. And there are great people in the Republican Party, but there's a small slice of leadership that feels like you have to go through this path and you have to do X, Y, Z, and they have to bless you running for office before you have a chance. I don't think that's how democracy works. And I don't think that's best for conservative values in our state. Yeah, I thought it was odd. It's not like I was making anything up. There were no character attacks. I was just explaining his voting record to people and asking why, given that he's failed so many times in a leadership role to advance conservative values, why he'd ask for a promotion. That seems like a peculiar thing if you're underperforming. So yeah, I know sometimes in Minnesota, when ketchup is spicy, people get a little concerned. But I did grow up in Illinois, so I don't know. I mean, Hugh Hewitt might have a great future in Democrat-controlled legacy media. He's not going to be getting a Christmas card from anyone on that stage. Look, we got to be able to answer that question. We're going to get asked it this fall. And the reality is two things can be true. One, the Constitution lays out the process to select the president of the United States. Joe Biden was certified and chosen by the electors of the president of the United States. Unfortunately, Joe Biden is the president of the United States. True. Also true, there has been voter fraud for a long time. And whenever you weaken election laws, you increase the probability of voter fraud. And I don't understand why this ends up being a partisan issue. You still have, Stacey Abrams running her mouth about how she's the governor of Georgia. She's not, she lost. And you've got Hillary in Hillary land saying she's the president of the United States. Hillary, you lost. But the fact is, there's a lot of people who have questions. And I think they have very legitimate, justifiable questions. When you're allowed to have multiple absentee ballots in your hands, when you don't have an ID requirement that's enforced for voting, you have all these things that just increase doubt in the system. And you have people who are like, man, I don't really know if my vote's counted. I don't know if I'm enfranchised. That's concerning for everybody. And the example I gave in another interview was the New York mayoral Democrat primary. Okay, this is all Democrats decide who runs that city. Because they use machines, which I think have no place in our voting system, 150,000 votes were fat-fingered into the wrong column. Now, the guy who ultimately won challenged those votes. This isn't partisan. The machines can't be trusted. They have no business being there. The majority of Minnesota's Scantron, thankfully, we need to eliminate the machines that we have beyond simply Scantron scanners. And we need to get people serving as election judges. If you are motivated to ensure that this is a clean election, we won't be able to change the law until we have the governor, the House, and the Senate. So it's incumbent upon you to ensure that you are an election judge and you serve. 90% of those positions were filled in Virginia. They had an honest election and they won it top to bottom. We can repeat the same thing here in Minnesota, and then we can get voter ID passed and we can go with provisional balloting and, get our elections on a better footing going forward. Well, moderate Republicans are going to have to realize that those two things can be true. And unfortunately, if you think that our election is 100% clean, when you have basically no prosecution for the voter fraud, you have documented cases where the machines have messed up, you have documented cases where people have been mailed the wrong ballot or have moved and have gotten an incorrect ballot. I don't understand how you can believe kind of that reality, that there's nothing wrong with the system. Now, is there massive fraud and everything? No, because then you couldn't have had Virginia. So again, there is a correct path down the middle here, and we need to show up and vote if we want to have any chance of taking our state back. But it absolutely will come up this fall, and the Democrats are going to attempt to paint anyone who asks any questions about the election as some kind of radical. And again, there's going to be some segment of the population you just can't reach, but people in the middle want their votes to be counted. They understand that we can do better with election integrity, but they also understand that the worst conspiracy theories are simply not true. Well, we're going to ride this momentum. It's been a busy few days with this, everyone's phone's blowing up with, hey, I want to have a fundraiser for you, or I didn't know you were on the radar, or, come talk at this thing. That's great. We just need to keep that momentum going. The more people realize that there's a candidate on that stage who's credible, can express himself, can beat Tim Walz in the general election, and is going to stand up and not back down from constitutional conservative values, the more we realize that there's a lot of Minnesotans out there who are really happy right now. They finally found their candidate, and we'd encourage them to sign on and support us. We need delegates because my campaign's over if I don't get the endorsement. So, those 2 days in May are going to determine it. And, we need people to enter that delegate process at their caucuses on 2/1. They can go to our website at electneil or savesoda.com, and they can sign up to be a volunteer or a delegate. But if now's the time to get involved, if you're excited about me and about this campaign and about what you saw, you got to get involved now. Otherwise, it'll be more and more difficult once those delegates are already selected. Yeah, no. I in this state, the most important thing here is that we have to get Tim Walz out of office. And I look forward to supporting whoever gets that nomination. There was a time where I thought, gosh, maybe you could go to the primary. Seeing this finally from the inside and understanding how hard this is, no. If I don't get that nomination, I'll be out there helping the folks who do, helping the party, and also taking a little time off with my kids this summer. It's really hard. I mean, you have to draw boundaries. This, like anything, this will eat as much as you're willing to give it. And I have hard boundaries. It's always, my family will always be first. And even as your governor, my family will be first. I'm not going to apologize for that. I think many people make decisions that they may regret at the end of their life. I'm not going to make those decisions. I've worked really hard, and I've put work over myself and my health and things at different points in my life, and I've learned from those mistakes. So family's always number one, my wife and kids, my business and my practice. I'm willing to put that on hold. Obviously, if I get the endorsement, the general election starts the next day, and I will be putting my practice on hold, and I have a great team to run that for me. But ultimately, you have to find that balance, because if you run yourself into the ground now, it's a marathon, and you won't be able to finish strong. And whoever wins needs to be peaking next October and needs to get it across that finish line. And then, once they're in, they need to be able to find that balance as well, because it will take whatever you can give it. And there's a way to, serve the campaign, work as hard as you can, but still preserve some time. I know Scott mentioned he sleeps 5 hours. He's got to sleep 8, man. He knows better. He's a doctor. You got to get your 7.5 to 8.5 hours of sleep every night. I'm a huge believer in that. There's actually like one of these rings I wear on one of my fingers. It's a sleep tracker. So people have wondered, like, what's that other ring besides your wedding ring? It's a sleep tracker. And that's so critically important. So I hope Scott gets a little more sleep going forward. I love Mike. I mean, I think Mike's awesome. And Mike Marty, who just dropped out this week, I just had lunch with him. He's fantastic. Okay. We need more guys like Mike and Mike running in politics in this state. I think that it gets too insider baseball. I think it seems too difficult of a hill to climb from the outside. And I've been so blessed to learn from both of the Mikes, Mike Murphy and Marty, throughout this entire process. I have nothing but good things to say about him. I would like to end up, hanging out with him at some point when this is all said and done, because I think he lives pretty close to me. And he's a great guy. He's a great Minnesotan. And I just am so excited that we have people finally that are not just these political insiders who are involved in this race at a high level. So nothing but good things to say about Mike. I know he's been going through some personal stuff recently with his mom, and he mentioned that at the debate. We've all known about that, and it's really hard, and Michelle's dad, and life happens in the background. And I think a lot of people may not understand that, we're all trying to do the best we can. We have businesses, we have kids, we have families, things come up. We're trying to get out there, but it's hard. And these are all still people up here. There's no malice. Even, talking about Senator Gazelka's record, I have no, personal malice against him. It's just, I'm going to call out, the way he voted and what he's done. But I wish nothing but the best personally to everyone on that stage. Yeah. And it's a good window for people into this. We like to beat people up, and I certainly, lob bombs at Walz, but he's a person too. But once you get into this arena, you expect to get hit. You expect to deliver some blows. That's probably, that's part of the game, and it'll always be that way. But when the bright lights are off, we're all still Americans, and in our own way, we're trying to make this country better. Yeah, I think Scott Jensen would be a great lieutenant governor. I just had to give him a little hard time. No, it's a little fun, Dr. Ribbing. No, I really haven't. I've been focused on trying to understand this process, understand how I fit into it. How do I get the number of delegates that I need? But I really have not started anything down the pathway of figuring out who that is. I think it's on that stage. I think we have different personalities. We have different ways of expressing ourselves. We have different ways of explaining the issues and trying to get people over onto our side. So really, it's a discussion of, which tool is best for the job. And the job is getting Tim Walz out of office. And we're going to have different strategies on how we do that and different methods to do that. My personal take on it is I think Minnesota is ready for a fighter. And that doesn't necessarily mean going full Trump all the time. Okay. There's a time to be nice. There's a time to explain things, but you know what? Every once in a while you got to throw a jab, and then sometimes you have to follow that with a cross. And do we want someone who's capable of doing that? And if so, is everyone equally good at it? So I think I have a different way of expressing myself. People can choose who they think will represent their ideals the best. And I think that's the best way to go. And I would say that against all the other candidates. The best thing for a potential voter or delegate goer is to just watch this debate. Just watch it. And this one isn't that much different than the ones that have come before it. We just have different styles, and you've got to select the one that you think is going to be most effective this fall against Tim Walz. Yeah, I think they have. I mean, it's always nice to not know what the questions are beforehand, because then you get to see how people can adapt on their feet. Because being governor of the state is, adapting and then imposing your will on whatever happens. It's not being able to study the questions and prepare some kind of speech. I don't prepare speeches. I just tell the truth, which makes it very easy. So, I think the debates have generally gone this way. This was certainly the first one where I think I called out Senator Gazelka's record for everyone to see. It was the one that's been the most televised. But I think the candidates have been fairly honest to who they are and pretty similar debate to debate. Yeah, it's going to be crime, schools, and the economy, and I think that's going to be around this country. Every Republican candidate is going to be running on those, and Democrats nationwide are going to be forced to justify their policies and plans on those three issues, and they're losing on all of them. Our streets are getting less safe everywhere across this state and in this nation. And our schools are continuing to fail. They have dropping test scores. We have questions about what's being taught at school. You have teachers saying teachers union saying the quiet part out loud, that parents have no say in what their kids should be taught. So that's definitely going to be a battleground. That's going to bring voters out. And then finally, the economy is not going to be any better. This Bidenflation is out of control. Businesses all over the spectrum are just getting wrecked by input costs, labor costs, and there's going to be a reckoning for this. The Fed likes to think it can control inflation. It can't. And once it starts like this, it's so destructive, particularly to people living on a fixed income, particularly to people that are working class or lower middle class. It's really difficult. And I think that we need to be able to demonstrate that we have economic plans that will unleash the growth of Minnesota as the cycle starts back up, the business cycle starts back up after this downturn. And I don't think the DFL has anything to offer. They're going to tax and spend their way to further damage the economy in this state. I want to grow it eventually to $1 trillion economy. And the only way we get there is by cutting taxes and regulation. It's a message and a plan that's worked in every state that's tried it. And it's time for it to happen here in Minnesota. Yeah, give it back. It's my money. It's your money. Yeah, and I'm kind of agnostic on how it comes back. I mean, you want to reduce the gas tax, you want to give it as a direct check back to people who paid taxes, you want to eliminate the Social Security double tax. Hey, just do a little bit of all of it. It's a smorgasbord. But every penny of that, along with the $2+ billion that they hold in reserve, so it's about $10 billion total. Every penny of that needs to come back to the citizens of Minnesota in some form or another, because it's not a surplus, it's an excess taxation. And so it's our money, and it's due back to us as a refund. When you pay too much to the federal government, you get a refund in the spring. This is our refund, and that check needs to come back in some form or another. Tim Walz is already dreaming up new and inventive ways to spend your hard-earned dollars, and we have to stand in the way and say, absolutely not. And as long as every penny is given back in some form or another, I'm going to be fine with that plan. And I think Minnesotans are ready for that. The reason they have that budget, like, $3 billion almost that they hold there, is because politicians on both sides of the aisle don't want to be forced to cut things when the budget inevitably finds itself in a shortfall. And this is why, we've kicked a $1 billion surplus down the road and not refunded that. It just sits on the books. That's not acceptable. If the economy turns down for my business, we cut expenses. If the economy turns down for the state, you have to cut the size of the state budget. And that may be hard decisions, but the career politicians in St. Paul don't want to cut anything. They want more of your money, and they want to waste it on programs that return less and less every year to the citizens of Minnesota. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm an Austrian, and so we can do an entire series once I'm governor on Austrian economics 101 for the citizens of Minnesota. The Fed shouldn't exist, and we can't end that here just in Minnesota. So what we can do is be very responsible about those dollars that we take, and we can take as few of them as possible and allow people to have as much of a cushion as possible to deal with the inevitable inflation that's going to come from a broken monetary system. But yes, we have a limited amount of tools as a state. And I would hope that the folks that we elect and send to Washington can help rein in, this concept that the Fed can't can control inflation, or that them trying to do so and printing money, which destroys people's life savings, destroys fixed income, people that are retired, is a good thing for Americans. I just tell the truth. And so I don't think there's anything that I regret. I guess on the first question, I should have probably led with the answer that I had today, because I never got to that part of like, Biden's legitimate president of the United States, like it or not. Oh, no, I think it was very honest for folks. That's how I feel on all these issues. And I'm not going to change on that. I'm going to be your governor, and I'm going to govern in that way. I'm going to stand for those principles. There's no squish. That's how I feel on these issues. I mean, the Second Amendment one was right in my wheelhouse. We've talked about that before. I'm going to be, an absolute warrior for Second Amendment rights in this state, because I can articulate why they exist, and I'm not afraid of going toe to toe with anyone in the gun control industry that wants to try to debate it. They're going to debate, they're going to lose, and we'll restore gun rights in the state once I'm governor. So they can go on social media at Neil Shah MN. They can find us on the web at electneil, electneil.com. We need people who want to go to caucus for us. We need people who want to donate dollars to us. Those are our biggest needs. If you saw something you liked on that debate stage, please get on our team, help us get there. And with your support, we can win the nomination and take the fight to Tim Walz this fall. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks, Kyle.